Hi everybody, it's Dean. Thank you for being a part of our weekend experience. This is session 2 in our collection of talks about the book of Esther. And Esther is just so practical. I want you to think of somebody who's going through it right now and be ready to send this message to them. Because today I'm talking about traps. In the book of Esther, I don't know if you've ever been in a trap or ever seen a movie where some guy is setting a trap. The enemy sets traps for God's people. In the book of Esther, a trap has been set. And there's what they call in literature an antagonist, the bad guy. His name is Haman. And there's the good guy, Mordecai. And in the middle is his cousin, Esther. And that's where we picked this story up. And it's from chapter 2. I'm going to read it from my phone here, and I'm going to talk about the 4 traps that she faced and you faced. It's going to take me a second to read this, so hold on. We'll read about 15 verses. Don't get bored. So it says, at that time there was a Jewish man in the fortress of Susa whose name was Mordecai, son of Jair. He was from the tribe of Benjamin and a descendant of Kish. That's important. It says his family had been part of those who had been exiled from Jerusalem to Babylon by King Nebuchadnezzar. That's like 75 years before. And now some of the Israeli people had gone back to Jerusalem, and about 1 million of them had stayed in captivity, which is, we don't know their logic, why they stayed in Persia under a godless or a wicked pagan king, but there they were. And it says this man had a beautiful and lovely young cousin, Hadassah, who was also called Esther. The name Esther means hidden. God is hidden in this book. He doesn't show himself. The word God doesn't show up. Prayer doesn't show up. You see a little fasting, but it doesn't say what it's all about, you know? And it says Mordecai had adopted this girl because her parents had died. And it says that Esther, along with many other young women, was brought to the king's harem at the fortress of Susa. You know what the word harem is, right? Not a good place. Not where you want your daughter to be, or your cousin to be, or your niece to be, or whatever role. This is a girl who, from a chosen people, who is in a place you wouldn't choose. And it says every day, it says Esther had not told anyone of her nationality and family background because Mordecai had directed her not to. And he would take a walk near the courtyard of the harem to find out about Esther and what she was doing. She had been given the 12 months of beauty treatments, 6 months of oil and myrrh, and 6 months of perfume. This was an elaborate process to get ready for the king. And when it was time to go to the palace, she would be given a choice of whatever clothing she wanted. She was taken to the king's private room, and the next morning would be brought to the second harem where his wives lived. There she would be under the care of this particular eunuch in charge of the concubines. She would never go to the king again unless he had enjoyed her especially and requested her by name. So you can see there was a process set up that could mean that this is a king in antiquity who had hundreds of concubines and wives, etc. She could never be heard from again, this little Jewish girl. And it says, I'm going to skip here a little, the king loved Esther more than any other young woman. He was delighted with her, so delighted that he set the royal crown on her head and declared her queen instead of Vashti, who last week we remember had been exiled. To celebrate the occasion, he gives a great banquet in her honor for all the nobles And all of this, it's amazing. Mordecai, her cousin, had become a palace official. Esther continued to keep her family secret and her nationality a secret. She was still following Mordecai's directions. And then it begins chapter 3, and here's what it says. Sometime later, King Xerxes promoted Haman, the Agagite, over all the other nobles. There are 4 traps here. Number 1, the past trap. I pointed out there, right at the end, you saw Haman, the Agagite. There was a wicked king hundreds of years before named Agag. This Haman was a descendant of Agag. And remember the first verse we read? It said Mordecai was the descendant of Kish. Kish lived at the same time as Agag. And back in that day, generations before, King Saul, who was a descendant of Kish, was supposed to have killed Agag, but he didn't. He disobeyed God. Saul's disobedience hundreds of years before now presents a dilemma for Mordecai and Esther. You are going to fight this trap that some decisions made by generations long ago are going to have to be put down by you. Some of you have already fought those battles, whether it was alcoholism or some other, I don't know, religious people sometimes call them generational sins, but I just think of it as momentum. Life has momentum. It's the law of the harvest. If we're planting corn out here, it just takes a few seasons till corn starts to come up. And we plant bad seeds and time goes by and generations happen and boom, the trap of the past. You're going to have to fight it. The second trap I want you to notice is the trap of place. Trap of place. That they were in the wrong place. Esther was in the wrong place. Now, I don't hear a lot of people talk about this one because I know Esther is sort of exalted. She's a long way away and we make her seem like she was a saint. But this girl was living in a harem and she could have been in Jerusalem. She was in Persia when her people were promised Jerusalem. And part of the reason I love being real about the story of Esther is that this girl was just like us. She was in the wrong place with the wrong people, doing the wrong thing. We don't know if it's because Mordecai stayed there or somebody told her or whatever, but that girl should have been in Jerusalem. That's the place she was promised. That's the place they were promised. So now she finds herself, this is the third trap, with no power, the power trap. You have the past trap, you have the place trap, you got the power trap. She had no power. In Jerusalem, she would have been a citizen. In Persia, she's property. She's just one girl in a harem and could be forgotten forever. And just the pressure of being totally unempowered. You're going to face that trap. You're going to find yourself cornered. The devil is trying to trap you and corner you right now. And you don't let him do it. Fight the trap. Evade the trap. Move away from the trap. Ask God to help you through the trap. This is a girl in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people doing the wrong stuff. But God was going to take everything toxic and turn it into something tasty. He was going to take everything destructive and turn it into something delightful. He was going to take something meant to destroy Esther and wipe out 1 million Jews and turn it into one of the great stories of antiquity about how a people was saved by their God and he was totally hidden. This is the way the Holy Spirit works. I've seen the Holy Spirit show up in crack houses, in jail cells, in courthouses, when people are sitting there facing charges for DUIs, in the lawyer's office, in the principal's office. I've seen it happen with divorce papers on the table. God can get you out of that trap. Another trap here, privacy. The privacy trap. This is the fourth one, and then I'm out. Esther had to hide something in her heart, something she couldn't trust an enemy with, and you might be that person too. You have something that you did, something that you are. In Esther's case, her ethnicity, her nationality, her family. She had to keep it to herself. And the enemy wanted to use those private things against her. But you know what? Whatever the enemy's trying to use against you is good. God has a way of taking the private and protecting you from it. I believe God understood in the right time the thing, that private thing she was hiding from the king, was going to be the thing that she would bring out just at the right time, and it would be an instrument of victory. Your private defeats, your private scars, your private horrors, and through the guidance of the Holy Spirit at the right time, you'll be able to pull that out and let it be an instrument of healing for somebody else. I can only say in my own life, in my early childhood, there was some abuse, some sexual abuse. And for a long time, man, that's something you don't want to pull out. And I can remember sitting with one young person, and they were telling me their story and of hurt and pain. And I can remember the anger when the sentence was said, "You don't understand." And I was able to say, actually I do understand. And to see the healing come. And over the years, I've seen hundreds of people healed by my private pain. Let it be so. These are the traps the enemy's working on. He's setting a trap for you because you're a great man, because you're a great woman. Come on. This city needs you, regardless of how you got there. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong people. This city, your family, your co-workers needs you to take a deep breath and know that God is working in hidden ways to take all of these traps, turn them into treasures, promotions, to become a ruler and not a subject. All right, thank you. Thanks for being a part of it. Enjoying these little mini encouragements. Share it with a friend. And don't come this weekend, would you? Week 3 of our Esther series. It's going to be so good. We're talking about fighting this week. All right? You want to be part of it. This is sign language. It means I love you. Make it a great day.